If I were teams that entertaining drafting Shedeur, I would. For me, one of the big takeaways is there's too many like situational, selfish sacks where they're unnecessary.
You got Coach Prime mad, and then Orlovsky's just trying to tell you, look, Shedeur Sanders was never a first-round talent. Shedeur Sanders, by a lot of regards, has been disrespected. At least that's what the fans think. And as me being a big Deion Sanders person and someone who advocates for Shedeur Sanders, I'm kind of perplexed. I'm conflicted. I'm conflicted because from the beginning of this situation, I knew that Shedeur Sanders was somebody who didn't have elite traits, who didn't have elite arm talent, but was elite in a lot of different ways, putting up plenty in a plethora of different stats and different things like that. I mean, this is somebody who's completed, if we take a look at it, 74% of his passes, 37 touchdowns, essentially having no running game, no offensive line. He is a John Unitas Golden Arm winner, a top-ranked quarterback in Colorado, breaking multiple school records, and everybody just wants to disrespect him because of who his father is. And I don't think it's just because of who his father is. I think that's where the hate comes from. But let's not mistake. Before we get into this, look, I think you can see my page and see I make a lot of Shedeur videos. I make a lot of Deion Sanders videos. So am I biased in that regard? Yes. But I'm also going to be truthful. Yes. Like I just told you, Shedeur Sanders is not a top 5 pick in any other draft class than I think potentially this draft class. Now, I think it was still a long shot, right? A lot of people have described both Jackson Dart and Shedeur Sanders as probably the 7th or 8th quarterbacks if we were to rank it on last year. But it does seem like, and we just made a video about this interesting quote, right, that came out. And remember, this came out, there was an entitled whatever quote that came out that a lot of people debunked just a few months ago, right after the combine. And then an assistant coach anonymously says, worst formal interview he's ever seen in his life. So entitled, unnecessary sacks, horrible body language, blames teammates, just a bunch of lies about Shedeur Sanders that we've already just completely debunked. But one lie that I think was told was that Shedeur was going to be drafted by the Giants and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it's tough because Jackson Dart was pretty low too. I think he didn't get drafted until number 25. So technically he was a late round pick too. They came back in. A lot of people were excited when the Giants traded back into the draft because seemingly they were going to get traded there. Also, some people were waiting for the Saints to also trade draft Shedeur Sanders. And it seemed to be a local New Orleans bar. This was their reaction to it.
Kelvin Banks. Get the fuck out of here, man. That's my fucking cousin, man. Kelvin Banks. A tackle. A tackle.
Now, what I'm not going to let you do is disrespect my boy Kelvin Banks, an elite offensive lineman, offensive tackle that a lot of people look at as an offensive guard, but clearly people weren't happy about it. And the baby wasn't happy about it either. Look at him. That was as soon as he got picked. Hey, maybe there's just bad juju going on here. Maybe there's just some serious bad juju going on. And we're going to go and we're going to listen to Dan Orlovsky go at Shedeur and Deion Sanders, you know what I'm saying, trying to defend. Joe Klatt defends Shedeur and debunk some lines. We're going to read some things. But before I even go deeper in it, I do want to talk about something that's going to be a theme throughout some of these comments that we're seeing. And it seems to be it seems to be that this hate for Shedeur Sanders, again, hate, it's not, it would be different if Shedeur Sanders was like a mean guy. If he was out doing anything, if he was actually, presented as arrogant and did different things. If he didn't do things like, I don't know, how about go to a production company and shake everybody's hand? Huh? I don't know how that becomes off as not being a professional guy. I don't know how we went from, hey, look, if you don't like Shedeur Sanders as a quarterback, like I said at the beginning, that's okay. 6'1", hasn't shown the biggest arm, even though I think he's got, I think, throwing this pass, took a little, actually I don't have it up here, but I think throwing a few, Hail Marys or doing what he does, I think, you know what I'm saying? I think that's worth something. I think that's decent, right? But let's not get mistaken. A lot of these things that people are saying, and one thing I saw some comments like literally happy, So happy that Shedeur Sanders is falling. And I have to ask you, besides Deion Sanders being a black father that has a lot of confidence in his young black son, why else would you be mad at a father saying, oh, yeah, my son is a top 5 pick, even though clearly he's not, sadly. Hey, we got to eat crow, dog. We got to eat crow. They said he was in the interviews like this. They said he was in an interview like Bobby Shmurda. They said he was in them interviews like that. So my man Coach Prime did get community noted, sadly. Sadly. NFL memes, one of my least favorite pages. He got the memes off. Sadly. But I think you have to look at it as somebody in Shedeur Sanders who is a 3-star prospect, right? Committed to FAU, right? Who seemingly wasn't the biggest, the baddest, and the greatest, who ends up still ranking as the #1 highest completion percentage in the world of FBS, right? You still break multiple multiple Colorado records. And obviously the jersey retirement people are very upset about, but you go check the admission numbers. Go check all the other numbers that actually bring in money. If you think these athletic directors care about who's this and that, nah, it's about revenue. You can generate revenue by winning championships, but you can also generate revenue by being Shedeur Sanders. So about the jersey retirement, I didn't want to hear that. I don't need to hear that. But more greatly, even though that's probably not the way I should say that, the bigger point here is that it does feel a little nasty. It does feel nasty when people say certain things. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to get shout out to Sylvian Wilkerson, by the way, for supporting the people. But it does feel a little bit nasty. And here was Shedeur 20 picks in, still chilling. Hopefully in good spirits. I mean, this is how people feel, dog. I've been told Shedeur Sanders isn't being picked because of his attitude. He's a typical. I'm not gonna say that because I don't even want YouTube to misconstrue me. What I'm saying, you can read that. You can see what people got to say. That's how people feel, and when it comes like that, it's got to be hate. Now, Mel Kiper was slobbing on it. Mel Kiper was in fact slobbing on it. Okay, so we do have to have that conversation. If we have time, we'll listen to him slob on it. But what I want to do now is I want to end it with Dan Orlovsky explaining why Shedeur did not get drafted in the first round, and of course, you got Coach Prime mad, right? Look, I mean, and Dan Orlovsky's just trying to tell you, look, Shedeur Sanders was never a first-round talent. That's how he feels. But let's hear it. We're going to hear from Dan Orlovsky. Then we're going to hear Joel Klatt defend. And then if we have time, we'll go into Mel Kiper. Let's hear it.
If I were teams that entertaining drafting Shedeur, I would want to sit down and watch a lot of the plays that led to the sacks and just have conversations around them. Why? Why did they happen? Because for me, one of the big takeaways is there's too many like situational, selfish sacks where they're unnecessary at times when you got points potentially on the board. This is 3rd and 3 from the 7-yard line. One, this ball should be thrown to the back part of the end zone once you see the safety drive. But that doesn't happen. It's 3rd and 3 from the 7, okay? And now all of a sudden it becomes 4th and goal from the 32. Again, this is 3rd down from the 28. Just throw this ball away. You lose the rep. The defense has won the rep. Throw it away. We've got a field goal shot from the 28, but instead it's a 10-yard sack. That happens too often. Then the non-dynamic athleticism. This is cover 2 man. Everybody man underneath, and we're just rushing the quarterback. I promise you, teams do this. I have heard coaches say, when we as a defense are playing quarterbacks that do not make us fear running, we're going to play 2-man in passing situations because our pass rush will handle it. And so they don't do that to Josh. They don't do that to Patrick. They don't do it really to Joe, Lamar. So that's the kind of the traits that you're talking about. So, again, that's the flaws that you're going to have to figure out when you eventually draft Shedeur.
Look, y'all.
Now, I don't think that in any way was hateful, but obviously Coach Prime agreed that apparently Dan Orlovsky turned into a hater. I don't believe that. I think a lot of those things that he was talking about are pretty fair, right? There are a lot of – I've come on here. Go back and watch my BYU video. I came on here and I said, yo, I think Shedeur Sanders just killed his draft stock. Like, he took multiple sacks where it's just like, yo, why? So in my head, I have to assume this. If I were to defend Shedeur, this is what I would say. I would say, as a guy who had as bad of an offensive line as he did, I think a lot of the sacks that he's taken, and again, this is me, he's gonna have to defend himself. I would say a lot of those sacks were just unavoidable, right? A lot, or not unavoidable, but a lot of those sacks were from a mindset of being hit so many times. I know, look, I said it in my other video, but guess what Matt Rule said about Shedeur Sanders? Called a few college coaches, Pete Thamel today, who played Shedeur Sanders. Got an interesting response from the Nebraska's Matt Rule, who feels like Sanders would thrive in the New York spotlight. I would take him at number 3. Obviously, that did not happen. Giants moved back in to get Jackson Dart. Shout out to Anakin. I thought he's tough. You can quote me on this. This is how strong I feel. He took 12 hits against us, 12 hits. There were 7 sacks. He's accurate, smart, sees coverage, and can run if he has to. So I think that some of the underwhelming athleticism can be a little bit, that could be a little overstated, but even better, I think that when you're in this sort of you have to play hero ball type situation, I think your tendencies start turning a little differently, right? I think it happens. Now, that's not an excuse, right? That's not a reason just to only do that. That's not absolving Shedeur Sanders of any of the negatives that he has. But at the end of the day, that's all I have. Now, before we end it out, I don't think we're gonna go to the Mel Kiper glaze. I don't think we have. He's comparing him to Aaron Rodgers and doing all that stuff. Let's hear Joe Klatt just simply defend the man, and we're gonna wrap it up.
Early. Yeah, and he won't shy away from the spotlight, and you can take that one of two ways. You can take that as a negative, you can take it as a positive. Shedeur represents everything that I dislike about the NFL draft, and it's only one thing, and it's narratives built up that are lazy and, quite frankly, trash. When you come out as an anonymous source about some meeting that you had and you don't think that some kid measured up to what you wanted him to be when he walked in your room, I think that that's trash. Shedeur Sanders is going to be a good quarterback in the National Football League, and I think that he's going to go and make some head coach and some fan base very happy because he's already done that in his career and what I think is a very difficult spotlight for his dad at the University of Colorado in a program that was nothing before he got there for 2 decades. So those are the things that I'm looking at.
2 decades, boy.
The things that you can't measure, and everyone wants to have an opinion about this guy. And listen, I get it, right? Yeah, he holds the ball too long and he drifts and all of those things. But I tell you what, this narrative that built up about Shedeur over this process, that's what I dislike about this draft.
Shedeur Sanders is a great football player. I'm not sure if he's going to be elite. I don't know if he's going to be a Hall of Famer. I don't know about that. I don't know how many Super Bowl championships or whatever is in his realm. But he's a great football player with records and a sort of statistic background that when we look at the greats and you talk about Colt Brennans and Colt McCoys and Sam Bradford, when you talk about people who were legends at the collegiate level, you're gonna, sadly, for Shedeur Sanders, gonna have to talk about Shedeur. Multiple 4,000-yard throwing seasons, 35-plus touchdown seasons, Colorado records that hopefully Julian Lewis can break coming up soon. That's what I want to lead with. I want that to be understood. But I'm no Glazer. I think a lot of the things and a lot of the negatives said are negatives. Just let's stop with the over hatred. This young gentleman had to sit through and be humbled. And whether it's the NFL, whether it's just his play, and whether you're pro Shedeur or not, he got humbled. And I think that's only going to equip him better as a 3-star, again, that had to claw his way through FCS, then at an unrecognized Colorado. He's going to have to do it again, and I hope he does it in a big way. At the end, I'm going to put some of my videos while I was reacting to the draft on stream, so y'all check those out. Other than that, man, like the video if you like it, dislike it, if you don't like it, subscribe if you enjoy college football content, draft content, football content, all that great stuff, man. You're great. Keep being great. We'll see you next time. As I'm recording this live, and we're already through 9 picks, officially Kelvin Banks goes to the University of Texas. I think the conversation needs to be had about where both of these quarterbacks are going to go, that being Jackson Dart and Shedeur Sanders. It seems like both of the landing spots were there, and both of them have also been linked to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think Shedeur has been linked to the Pittsburgh Steelers more strongly as of recent, and definitely heavily Jackson Dart, as you see the odds jumping and different things like that. So not only does Shedeur not go, but Jackson Dart doesn't go there too. So I think this causes more questions. I think this is going to be in the video that I ultimately record when this first round ends, whether Shedeur is still on the board, whether he went to, another team, whether someone, drafted back at the late rounds. But as it stands right now, we're looking at a draft class where both quarterbacks or both the next quarterbacks are seemingly going to keep tumbling. And that was interesting because that was one of the narratives that keeps surrounding this draft. Hey, it's a weak draft. It's a weak quarterback draft. So it almost felt like a lot of people were just putting players in spots and less of so really allowing them to be there, allowing them to be the fit. And now we see it as, again, the next two quarterbacks are waiting, and we'll see. And then we'll update from there. Officially on the clock with them being strongly linked to who, Big Bad Shedeur Sanders. This could be interesting here, and let's just look right here at Shedeur, and be ready to see